Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another episode on EI Entertainment Studios, back at it with another debate episode. Today's debate episode, we're going to be talking about Godzilla 2019 versus Legendary Zilla. If this is the first time you've ever watched a debate video on the channel, what I like to do is I like to open a door that's never been opened before. So, for that to make more sense, for example, in this case, we have Godzilla 2019 being an official kaiju. It's in the movies, we know it's a real monster made by actual film companies. And then we'll get a fan-made kaiju, a kaiju that doesn't necessarily exist in the kingdom of Toho or Legendary's Monsterverse. And we'll create this monster, we'll come up with its backstory, its height, abilities, pretty much all of its characteristics and origins, and we'll see if this monster were to be real, how would it have all these characteristics? Again, what would its backstory be? And most importantly, how would it fight against Godzilla? Could it win? Would it lose? And that's what we're here to answer. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to start off with a Legendary Zilla being the opponent. We're going to go over the backstory, abilities, all the characteristics. And then we'll go over Godzilla 2019, and then at the end we'll put these two monsters up against each other to fight to the death. So without further ado, let's begin with the backstory of Legendary Zilla. Legendary Zilla originated from an ancient underground human civilization that despises the living creatures on the surface of the planet. Their guardian monster is Legendary Zilla, which comes from a mutated iguana and preserved Spinosaurus DNA, which then was mutated together, also adding ritual prayers to the mix by the ancient civilization to create a guardian of their kingdom. And now the civilization has died off, and Legendary Zilla is free to roam the surface of the earth. Dun dun dun. So that's the backstory that I came up with for Legendary Zilla. Now, for the abilities, I'm going to skim over the abilities really quickly. We're gonna finish up Legendary Zilla, and then we'll go back to the abilities with deep analysis before we move on to Godzilla 2019. So do not be worried. So quick skim. Abilities as follows: Super Flammable Wind Blast, Sharp Claws, Poison Tail Stabber, Fast Climbing Supersonic Sprints, Spirit Form, and 360 Ball Force Impact. Alright. Now, going off of that, the height of Legendary Zilla is around 112 meters, and the length is a whopping 217 meters. Territorial level is now none, as we all know. The backstory that I came up with, he has left the underground, the civilization has died off, and now he's roaming freely, so there's nothing for him to really protect other than himself. But when I say territorial, I mean like a area that they're protecting, and there is nothing for him to protect at the moment. He doesn't care. So territorial level is none, however aggression level is high. Biome is all areas of Earth, including hot or extreme hot temperatures due to the exposure of being at the center of the Earth, as that's where he lived. The civilization was really back under there, so. Okay, let's go back now to the abilities and let's do a deep analysis. So let's start off with the Super Flammable Wind Blast. This is an interesting one. So Legendary Zilla can use what I want to say is, like, for example, think of Godzilla's Atomic Breath. It's not like a fire shooting out, but it's more of a wind blast. But that wind is super flammable. Just a little bit of hot temperature, just the right circumstances, and it will turn into a ball of living hell. So it's actually, could be potentially even stronger than Godzilla's atomic radiation breath because of how flammable this wind blast is. And it's so flammable that 99.9% of the time that he uses it, it will turn into a big ball of fire that hits his opponent with impact. So it does cause a good amount of damage to his opponents. So it's a good ability for him, bad ability for his opponents, obviously. Okay, going off of that, he also has sharp claws. So he's good. The Sharp Plus can be used for two things: for climbing, but also it's used to dig into the flesh of his opponents. So you gotta be careful, especially when opponents are grappling with Legendary Zilla. He can shove his claws into their flesh. You gotta be careful of the eyes, the mouth. He can go and swipe at that as well. So the claws are very, very sharp. Very good ability for defense and offensive. Next, we have Poison Tail Stabber. So the end of his tail is very sharp, and he has a tip, and that tip actually has poison, and when he stabs his opponents, the poison gives numbness to his opponents, and therefore he can be targeting that specific area, and the opponent will not know to pull back and go to defensive mode because they can't feel any pain. So he can keep on stabbing or clawing at one portion of like the face or the body, wherever that tail gets whipped into, and they'll be numb. So they won't have a realization to pull back, and therefore they can be causing a lot of damage to the opponent because of the numbness. Okay. Next we have the fast climbing. Again, he's a very, very fast climber, and supersonic sprints. He can sprint on all four legs and two legs as well, bipedal, I guess that's what you call it. Very, very supersonic speed, so it's really hard to catch this guy when he's running. He also has a spirit form. Remember in the backstory we went over how this civilization not only mutated iguana and Spinosaurus DNA, but also gave in ancient prayers. So this creature, Legendary Zilla, can actually form into a spirit form. So opponents clawing at him or shooting atomic breath. He can't do this a lot, but he can do this, I want to say, every 1 hour for about 5 or 6 minutes, depending on his energy level. He can actually go into a spirit form, and anything that opponents throw at him will go exactly through him. So very, very good ability. If he's losing a battle, he's going to take a quick rest, goes into spirit form, and he can recover, potentially. And also when he's in spirit form, he can't attack his opponents as well. So it's a completely defensive form. Next we have the 360 ball force impact. So Legendary Zilla can actually form into a ball, something similar to Anguirus. He can form into a ball and just, like in a 360 pattern, just ram into his opponents, which will knock them off the ground. And while doing that, his tail will be pointing forward, and his dorsal plates are super sharp, and they are meant to protrude and dig into the flesh of the opponent. So it does cause a severe amount of damage. Okay. Now that we have that done in a sense, that is Legendary Zilla. So we have him done now. Now let's talk about the one and only Godzilla 2019. This Godzilla is much, much more different than any of the Godzillas from the other generations. So let's talk about that, so we understand we're on the same page. First of all, Godzilla is meant to be an abomination. He's meant to be a mistake from humanity's tests of the nuclear bomb. All of that stuff, right? A good example would be, for example, the original Godzilla, 1954. Even better, Shin Godzilla. He is an abomination to humanity. He is a mistake and not meant to be here. However, on the other side, when it comes to Legendary Godzilla, he's not a mistake. He is nature's order, nature's balance, and he is made to be here. So he's a good thing. You could call him a friend of humanity, to potentially say it, until he realizes how disgusting humanity can be to planet Earth. So his origins, again, he's a natural monster. He was considered a god by older civilizations, and now that he has progressed over the past years, and we can see that in 2014 and in 2019 films, he got stronger. He got way more agile. I mean, he is the only Godzilla that I've personally witnessed survive a blast from the oxygen destroyer. Though the one specific destroying ability that killed off the original Godzilla. His height is around 119 meters tall, and his abilities are sacrificed because of it being a more realistic Godzilla. You see, when we add the abomination aspect to a Godzilla, we can do almost anything because he's mutated from radiation. And when he's mutated from radiation, we can make a good argument saying, oh, he's like Shin Godzilla, he's mutated, so he can have a face and a tail. He can have lasers from the back. He can have quadruple amounts of forms. I mean, he could have more forms than four. But when it comes to Godzilla, he's a natural monster. We can't do that, and that's been sacrificed by Legendary. Which I think is nice to have two different aspects of Gojira. And for this Godzilla, he can kick, he can punch, he knows how to fight. Physical fight, he has it all. He's very agile, he has a very, very strong tail whip. He has the atomic breath, but most importantly, he has one of his most important abilities is called Burning Godzilla Blast. And for that to occur, there must be two catalysts fulfilled. He must have more excessive radiation, meaning more radiation than he already has in his body, and the full energy, spiritual energy of Mothra. So she has to die for this to happen. She has to give all of her energy to Godzilla. When these two things combine, he can go into burning mode, and he will just blast super hot amounts of radiation, melting his opponents to death. It is disastrous. Okay. Now, and then going off of Territorial, he is extremely high because he is a guardian of Earth. Aggression is again high when he needs to be, and Biome is pretty much all of Earth. Because he is Godzilla, he can survive at super hot temperatures. We saw evidence of that when he went down into depth into the caves of Earth to recover from the oxygen destroyer. Okay, now that we have these two monsters pretty much summed up and done, let's go to the portion where we've all been waiting for, the battle. So how I'm going to do the battle is I'm going to go best out of two. What do I mean by that? We're going to go close range battle and a far range battle. When I say close range, face to face, all abilities are allowed. Far range, we do it for a specific purpose. We limit our opponent's abilities to see if they are lingering some abilities, would they still be able to win a battle? And that's the whole aspect of far range. So that's how we are going to do it. Okay. Now, going from that perspective, we'll start off with far range first because close range is more practical. And then if we need to go to overtime, I'm not going to explain it now. If the time comes, then I'll explain it. So let's start off with far range with a Legendary Zilla. Let's see what abilities he can and cannot use. So Super Flammable Wind Blast is meant to go far distance, and they're going to be 700 meters apart from each other. The Super Flammable Wind Blast is okay. Sharp Claws, not going to happen. Poison Tail Stabber, not going to happen from far range. Fast Climb, you can climb around but you can't get close to him. Supersonic Sprints, sure, can't, it's just for defensive. Spirit Form, sure. 360 Ball Force Impact, no. So the only ones that he can actually use for offensive is Super Flammable Wind Blast. That's it. The Sharp Claws, no. Poison Tail Stabber, no, we said. Fast Climbing, no. Supersonic Sprints. Some of them are okay for defensive but not offensive. Supersonic Sprints, you can use defensive. So yes, the only thing you use is Super Flammable Wind Blast. For Godzilla, even though Godzilla isn't going to be limited as well, he's going to have a little bit more abilities on his side. So he can actually use his Atomic Breath and his Burning ability. So obviously, this is the surface, the whole Earth is going to be territory for Godzilla 2019. Meaning he's going to be the one challenging. Well, not challenging, but obviously Legendary Zilla is going to initiate the fight. But Godzilla will be the first one, I want to say, to push to the fight because he's defending his homeland, right? And I think the only thing he can do now is use an Atomic Breath. And Obviously, the atomic breath is gonna cause severe damage to Legendary Zilla, but it's also going to anger him. Remember, Legendary Zilla has a pretty good level of anger, and it's going to anger him, it's going to cause him to fight back. And he's going to use, the only thing he can use at a far range distance is the super flammable wind blast. And remember, I made this very distinct that this super flammable wind blast is no joke. It can cause severe damage. It's not just fire. It's so flammable that it becomes super hot, probably 3 times hotter than any living creature even Godzilla can endure. And when he uses this, it has the potential of pushing onto 700 meters and past it. So it's going to have a lot of distress on Godzilla, potentially giving him a lot of damage in the making of this, right? And going from this, it's going to be to a point where Godzilla might realize that this atomic breath that he has may not be equivalent to these super flammable wind blasts. So at this point, Godzilla 2019, I want to say, is losing to Legendary Zilla. But when it comes to forcing into his burning ability, supersonic speed is not going to help him. The climbing is not going to help him. The super flammable wind blast is not going to help him. The sharp claws ain't going to help him. So, as much as this is, I believe that when Godzilla uses the burning ability, it's all over for Legendary Zilla. Even if he uses spirit form, he's going to come back to physical form at one point, and it's all over. I'm sorry, but far distance Legendary Zilla is very, very lacking a lot. So Legendary Godzilla, or Godzilla 2019, will win at the moment with 1-0. Now let's go to close range, where the whole game changes. Close range is going to be a bit different, because they're face to face. Now, let's take into consideration that Godzilla is already taller. Legendary Godzilla is taller than Legendary Zilla. Remember, Legendary Godzilla is around 119 meters. Legendary Zilla is around 112 meters. Yeah, it's not that big of a difference. There's a difference, but not like crazy. It's not like a Gigantus versus a little ant. But we have to take into consideration this. Legendary Zilla is faster, more agile, potentially even more smarter than Godzilla 2019. So when they go into battle, this is where Legendary Zilla in close distance in an actual battle will prosper. I see him, first of all, using supersonic springs, running all over the place and just making Godzilla go all dizzy. Running all over the place. And then using sharp claws, just running around, digging his claws into him. As soon as Godzilla turns around to see where he is, he's running to a different place. And then coming back, clawing another portion of him. Going back, clawing another portion of him, etc., etc., etc. Also, with that said, he can also do the sharp claws, and then he can start hitting him with the poison tail stabber, and start stabbing him in different places of the body quickly with his tail, numbing him all over his body. As soon as he does that, he can use a 360 ball force impact, dig his tail and his dorsal plates into the body of Godzilla, pushing him down onto the ground. As soon as he does that, he can use a super flammable wind blast on the face of Legendary Godzilla, just destroying him all out right there. And that's how I see Legendary Zilla defeating Godzilla. Taking into consideration what Godzilla has, I don't think he'll have the time to do it just because how fast this creature is. Putting it at a 1-1, a tie game. So very rare instance. So we're gonna move on to overtime, where we're gonna go pure abilities with no circumstances. So let's do that right now. We'll start off with Legendary Zilla. He has the super flammable wind blast, sharp claws, poison tail stabber, fast climbing, supersonic sprints, spirit form, and 360 ball force impact. Next, for Godzilla 2019, we have the atomic breath, burning ability, super agility, very, very hard to kill. Overall, he's very fast at swimming and all of that. So I'm gonna have to go with Legendary Zilla for this one, just because of the Spirit Form and the 360 Ball Force Impact, especially because the Poison Tail Stabber. Again, this is a debate. This is my opinion. I'm gonna go with 2-1 with Legendary Zilla. You can obviously debate me in the comment section below. I will leave Legendary Zilla's backstory, abilities, all that good stuff in the description of this video. Anyways, this has been it, ending it at 2-1 for Legendary Zilla. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.